In recent weeks, the America First candidate, Donald Trump, has declared he wants the economy to fail and he doesn't want Republicans to solve what they claim is a crisis at the border. Yet the Republican Party has capitulated to him at an insane speed. Exhibit A, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. For a while, she was staking her entire political identity on being an anti-Trump Republican maverick and a self-proclaimed new voice for the party. She made a big point of saying Trump had wiped out his legacy with January 6th and said he put their lives at risk, even though she voted to acquit him. Donald Trump responded by trying to end her career, endorsing her primary opponent and calling her a grandstanding loser and a rhino. So it's more than a little pathetic that this week, one day before the New Hampshire primary, Nancy Mace endorsed Donald Trump over Nikki Haley. By prostrating herself to the altar of MAGA ambition, she's a lot like fellow South Carolinian Tim Scott, just without the humiliating dance around. But her recent conversion to MAGA is even more embarrassing if you look back at where she started this journey. The Washington Post reported that, quote, Mace was so angry at Trump during the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol that she discussed with aides the prospect of confronting the rioters so she could get punched and become the face of anti-Trump Republicans. According to former staffers familiar with the incident, who spoke on the condition of anonymity out of fear of retribution. The Daily Beast also reported on the punch in the face account, noting that, according to 3 sources who heard the comments firsthand, Mace used those exact words. She wanted to go get punched in the face. One anonymous former aide said, quote, she literally begged us to let her leave the office and head to the floor so she could get punched in the face and get media attention. That's word for word what she requested. I'm joined now by Tim Miller, MSNBC political analyst and writer-at-large for The Bulwark, and Charles Blow, MSNBC political analyst and columnist for The New York Times. Tim Miller, it falls to you to explain the punch in the face candidate Nancy Mace.
Can I just say, we'll take anti-Trump Republicans where we can get them. I mean, there are very few of us, Joy, and so if she wants to go get punched in the face, well, she's welcome at the Bulwark. We could find her a slot in the lineup. All right, the water is warm, but unfortunately,
and no one will punch her in the face.
Nobody will punch her in the face. We'll welcome her with open arms. Come on over to the Never Trump movement. Look, I think that, like many of these other folks, just in a more ostentatious manner, she saw where the wind was blowing on this. And I think that a lot of these candidates have made the decision that they did not want to fight a losing battle. Back in 2016, a lot of folks did, maybe not as many as I had hoped, but try to resist Trump and restrain Trump and fight him. Even Mike Lee, remember, on the convention floor, all the way to the convention floor, people were fighting him. Ted Cruz said, vote your conscience in his convention speech. How'd that turn out for all of them? I think the lesson all of these cowards took was that there's no sense fighting this guy, and that, if you just get in the front of the line, maybe you can get the appointment that you want, and maybe if you're really lucky, you'll avoid the gallows the next time the people come to hang you. I don't know. I guess that's basically the decision they've all made, and that's why nobody endorsed Nikki Haley. Literally no one. She is a single member of the House of Representatives, no senators. And Nancy Mace, I think, thinks that she might be on the short list for some Donald Trump gigs.
The thing about it is it's so bananas, Charles Blow, is that you have all of these people, including the very embarrassing Tim Scott, senator from South Carolina, auditioning for the job that Donald Trump tried to get the last guy who had the job hung. Why would anybody want the job where Donald Trump, if he becomes displeased, will urge his crowd to kill you?
I think that we underestimate how addictive power is for some people. I think we live in a capitalist society. We understand people doing anything for money. We assign this idea of people doing anything for power to history books, and maybe the ancient Romans were doing, anything for power. No, this is a constant in kind of human life, and it is showing up very prominently in the Republican Party right now. They're just doing anything for power. There are a lot of rich people in Congress, but many of them make their money before they get to Congress. There's not a lot of money in these jobs. What they have in these jobs is power. They get the cachet. They get the cameras in their face. People always want to be them. They get in the front of the line. They get to sit down. They get to be honored at events. That seems small and strange to many of us who would never give up our dignity for that. But for these people, they are addicted to that. That is, we also forget sometimes that politics is a career. This is what they do for a living. Some of them may start as a lawyer or a business person, but then they become, this is their only job. And the only way they can see to advance the Republican side is to cozy up to the guy who has taken over the Republican Party.
Yeah, though, fair point. And one of the things that they're doing to cozy up to him is flirting with the idea that we should have a civil war about the border. Donald Trump has now essentially called for a civil war. He's called for all willing states to send their National Guard soldiers to Texas. The governor of Texas is doing massive resistance, the modern day version of it, and saying, we're going to fight the federal government. We're not going to listen. 25 Republican governors have backed Texas in essentially saying they're going to defy the federal government and continue to essentially try to operate federal law themselves. Look at where those states are, Tim. Most of those states are nowhere near the southern border. And yet they're all backing this idea, as many of them did when it came to the election in 2020, of essentially defying the federal government. Not essentially, actually.
Yeah, Indiana's going to be sending troops to the border. That's an interesting call for those National Guard folks. Look, Joy, anybody that spends time in the Republican fever swamps, which I do, unfortunately, has seen the secession thing coming for a while. These folks are looking for an excuse. Obviously, the immigration thing, I think that there's a legitimate problem that people could be suggesting legitimate policy solutions to on the border. That's not what this is right now. What these guys are doing is using this to make a threat that their most vocal supporters have been wanting to make. I mean, people have been talking about Texit for a while now. If you go into, the Daily Wire or some of these more far right than that conservative outlets, they talk about threatening secession. And I think that if the Democratic president was somebody not Joe Biden, I think that we probably would have been seeing this earlier in the term.
And one of the things that's coming, Charles Blow, is something called Take Our Border Back Convoy. Noted this online today. And here is a pullout just of the text in this invitation. It says, calling all truckers, bikers, law enforcement, veterans, military, elected officials, business owners, ranchers, and freedom-loving Americans. It's supposed to start in Virginia Beach on Monday. It's separate rallies on February 3rd near Eagle Pass, Texas, Yuma, Arizona, and San Ysidro, California. They're saying it's supposed to be a peaceful convoy and active activism. But the lineup of people sounds a lot like the lineup of people who were at January 6th.
Right. Listen, as long as it's peaceful, I support people's right to protest. And if you don't like what's happening on the border, by all means protest, as long as it's peaceful, right? But this idea that trying to spark some sort of civil war, that's a real problem. That's not a small thing. And when you look at that map, you see a lot of places where there are very few people, and that, the places in between places are the places that are angry. They are the places where the power doesn't reside in the culture, and therefore, and they want to be separate from the places where it does reside in the culture. The biggest universities are not there. The biggest cities are not there. They feel overwhelmed, but you cannot plan to break away from the United States just because you feel overwhelmed. You have to win the argument. And that is where they are failing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that what originally sparked the notion of civil war was an election. It was the election of Abraham Lincoln, who the slaveholding South did not want to be the president of the United States because they feared he'd take away their money-making human bondage industry. Tim Miller, Charles Blow, thank you very much.